Commander Lisa Hayes wiped the sweat from her face as she looked at the ancient stone walls around her. The underground chamber was huge, bigger than any building she had ever seen. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing with a soft blue, light that made her skin look pale. "This place is amazing," she said to Dr. Kell, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. The Velthani scientist was taking pictures of the walls with a device that looked like a metal spider. "These writings are over 10,000 years old," Dr. Kell replied, his voice making clicking sounds. "The civilization that built this place was very advanced, much more than we thought possible." Lisa nodded and walked deeper into the chamber. She was the only human on this dig team. The other members were all aliens from different worlds. They had been working on this planet for 3 weeks, digging up old ruins and trying to understand what happened to the people who once lived here. The planet was called Kepler 442b. It was far from Earth, in a part of space most humans had never seen. The Galactic Council had invited Earth to join this dig because they needed someone good at solving puzzles. Humans were known for being clever, even if most aliens thought they were still primitive. "Commander Hayes, come look at this," called Captain Roy Webb from across the chamber. He was standing next to a smooth black wall that looked different from the others. Roy was from Earth too, but he was the ship captain, not part of the dig team. Lisa walked over to where Roy was standing. The black wall was perfectly smooth, like glass. When she got close, she could see her reflection in it. "I think this might be some kind of control panel," Roy said. "Look at these marks here." Lisa looked where he was pointing. There were small symbols carved into the wall, so faint she could barely see them. They looked like buttons or switches. "We should be careful," she said. "We don't know what this thing does." But Dr. Kell had already walked over to join them. His 4 arms moved quickly as he pulled out different tools to study the wall. "This is fascinating," he said. "These symbols match the ones we found on the upper levels. I think this might be a library or data storage system, or a weapon," said Zara, another alien team member. She was a Zorathi, with blue skin and large eyes. "My people have legends about ancient weapons that could destroy entire worlds." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "Maybe we should contact the council before we touch anything." But Dr. Kell was already pressing one of the symbols. The black wall suddenly lit up with bright white light. Everyone stepped back as the wall began to hum with energy. "What did you do?" Lisa asked. "I just activated the interface," Dr. Kell said, but his voice sounded worried now. "It should be safe. These are just information systems." The humming sound got louder. The walls around them began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling as the ancient chamber came alive with power. "This doesn't feel like an information system," Roy said. He grabbed Lisa's arm. "We need to get out of here now," but it was too late. The floor beneath them began to glow with the same blue light as the walls. Lines of energy raced across the stone, connecting to other parts of the chamber. The air filled with a sound like screaming metal. "The whole structure is activating," shouted Zara over the noise. "We've awakened something that was meant to stay asleep." Lisa felt the ground shake under her feet. Through the chamber's entrance, she could see the sky outside changing color. What had been a normal orange sunset was now a sick green color. "Get to the ship," she yelled to the others. "We need to warn the council." They ran through the underground passages, following the path back to the surface. Behind them, the ancient chamber was getting brighter and brighter. The sound of machinery filled the air, machinery that had been silent for thousands of years. When they reached the surface, Lisa saw something that made her blood turn cold. The sky was full of shapes, dark things that moved like living creatures. But they were made of metal and stone. They rose from the ground all around the dig site. "What are those things?" Roy asked. Dr. Kell's forearms were shaking as he looked at his scanning device. "The readings are impossible. These creatures are both organic and mechanical. They're like nothing in our databases." One of the creatures landed near them. It was the size of a small building, with dozens of legs that ended in sharp claws. Its body was covered in the same black material as the wall in the chamber. When it opened what might have been its mouth, Lisa saw rows of spinning metal teeth. "Devourers," whispered Zara. "The old stories were true. We've awakened the Devourers." The creature moved toward them with surprising speed. Lisa and the others ran for their ship, the Harmony's Edge. They could hear more creatures emerging from the ground. Behind them, Roy reached the ship first and began starting the engines. "Everyone inside now." As they climbed aboard, Lisa looked. Back at the dig site, the entire area was now covered with the dark creatures. They were moving toward the ship, their metal claws scraping against the stone. "They're blocking our path," Roy said from the pilot's seat. "I don't think we can take off." Lisa sat down at the communication station. "Then we send a message. We warn everyone about what we've found here." Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. She opened every communication channel she could find. The message would go to the Galactic Council, to Earth, to every civilization that had listening posts in this part of space. "This is Commander Lisa Hayes of the Harmony's Edge." She spoke into the microphone. "We are under attack by unknown hostiles on Kepler 442b. We have accidentally activated some kind of ancient defense system. These creatures are unlike anything we've seen before. They appear to be both organic and mechanical. We need immediate assistance." She sent the message just as the first creature reached their ship. The metal hull shook as claws scraped against it. Through the window, Lisa could see dozens more approaching. "Did anyone receive the message?" Roy asked. Lisa looked at her controls. "I don't know. The signal went out, but these creatures are jamming our communications now." The ship shook again, harder this time. One of the creatures had found a way onto the hull. They could hear it moving around above them. "We need to find a place to hide," Lisa said. "Somewhere these things can't reach us." But as she looked out the window, she saw that the creatures were everywhere. They had surrounded the ship completely. And in the distance, she could see more of them rising from the ground. Whatever they had awakened, it was spreading. And Lisa realized with growing horror that their small dig team might have just doomed the entire galaxy. Lieutenant Jake Morris sat at his desk in the Earth Defense Station, drinking his third cup of coffee of the night. The station orbited Earth's moon, watching for signals from deep space. Most nights were quiet. Too quiet, his computer made a soft beeping sound. A new message had arrived on the emergency channel. Jake sat up straighter and opened the file. "This is Commander Lisa Hayes of the Harmony's Edge. We are under attack by unknown hostiles on Kepler 442b. Jake's coffee cup hit the floor. He knew that name. Lisa Hayes was one of the few humans working with the Galactic Council. If she was in trouble, it was serious. He played the rest of the message. The fear in Hayes' voice made his skin crawl. Ancient creatures, spreading across the planet. A threat unlike anything they had seen before. Jake immediately called Admiral Kate Sullivan. The Admiral was known for being tough, but fair. She had been asking the government to build better defenses for Earth. Most people thought she was too. Paranoid. "Admiral, we have a code red from the Outer Rim," Jake said when she answered. "One of our people is trapped." Admiral Sullivan was at the station within an hour. She listened to the message 3 times, her face getting more serious each time. "How many humans are with this expedition?" she asked. "Just Commander Hayes and Captain Webb," Jake replied. "But ma'am, the message mentions creatures that are both organic and mechanical. and they're spreading. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Get me President Collins on a secure line, and wake up Captain Clark. Tell him to prepare the fleet. The fleet, Mom? Jake asked. Are we really going to send military ships? Admiral Sullivan looked at him with cold eyes. Lieutenant, most of the galaxy thinks we're still flying around in chemical rockets. They have no idea what we're really capable of. It's time to show them. 2 hours later, Jake watched from the station's observation deck as the Earth Defense Fleet prepared for launch. He had never seen all the ships together before. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The flagship was the UES Retribution, a massive vessel that looked more like a weapon than a ship. Its hull was black metal covered in armor plates. Rows of gun ports lined its sides. Captain Ben Clark commanded the Retribution, and Jake had heard stories about him. The man had never lost a battle. Behind the flagship came the heavy cruisers Vengeance and Defiance. They were smaller than the Retribution, but just as deadly looking. Their engines glowed blue-white as they moved into formation. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Sullivan said, joining Jake at the window. The Council representatives always ask why we need such big weapons. They think space should be peaceful. Maybe they're right, Jake said. Maybe we are too violent. The Admiral shook her head. Son, humans didn't survive on Earth by being peaceful. We survived because we were better at fighting than anything else on our planet. And now something is threatening our people. It's time to remind the galaxy why that was a mistake. On the flagship's bridge, Captain Ben Clark was reviewing the mission files. The data from Commander Hayes' message was not good. The creatures she described sounded like something from a nightmare. What do you think, Colonel? Clark asked Colonel Sam Foster, who was standing next to him. Foster was in charge of the Marines, the soldiers who would board enemy ships and fight in close combat. I think we're going to find out what humans are really made of, Foster replied. My men are ready for anything. Dr. Amy Chun, the ship's science officer, was studying the alien data. Captain, these creatures are unlike anything in our databases. They seem to consume both organic matter and technology. If they're allowed to spread, they could threaten all life in the galaxy. Clark nodded. Then we stop them, no matter what it takes. The fleet began to move. Jake watched as the ships activated their quantum drives, technology that the rest of the galaxy didn't even know existed. The Retribution and its escort ships disappeared in flashes of blue light, moving faster than anything should be able to. Travel. Admiral Sullivan smiled grimly. They should reach the outer rim in 6 days. The Council's fastest ships would take 6 weeks. Will 6 days be soon enough? Jake asked. It has to be, the Admiral replied. Because if we're too late, those creatures might spread to other worlds. And then we'll have a galaxy-wide war on our hands. As the fleet traveled through space, Captain Clark received updates from Earth's intelligence network. The news was not good. The creatures on Kepler 442b were spreading to other planets in the system. Several alien colonies had gone silent. How many people are we talking about? Clark asked Dr. Chun. The system has 3 inhabited worlds, she replied. Total population around 50 million. All different species. Colonel Foster joined them on the bridge. My Marines are ready to deploy, sir. We've been training for boarding actions and ground combat, but we don't know what we're up against. Clark looked at the tactical display. We know they're fast, they're tough, and they consume everything they touch. That's enough to plan with. Sir, said Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez, the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to know why we launched a military fleet without permission. Clark almost laughed. Tell them we're conducting a rescue operation. We'll discuss permission later. The truth was, Earth had been building this fleet in secret for years. While the Council believed humans were still primitive, Earth's scientists had been developing weapons and technology that pushed the limits of physics. The quantum drives, the energy shields, the weapon systems. All of it was beyond what the Council thought possible. "Captain," Dr. Chun said, looking up from her console, "I'm detecting some kind of signal from the Kepler system. It's very faint, but it's definitely artificial." "Put it on speakers," Clark ordered. The bridge filled with static. Then a voice came through. It was Commander Hayes, but she sounded desperate. "This is Hayes on Kepler 442b. We are trapped underground. The creatures have taken control of the surface. They're building something, some kind of structures. We can hear them, working day and night." The transmission cut off. Clark looked at his crew. "How long until we arrive?" "4 days, sir," replied the navigation officer. "Too long," Clark said. "Push the engines harder. I want to be there in 3 days." "Sir, the quantum drives aren't designed for that kind of stress," the engineering officer warned. "Then we'll find out what they're really capable of," Clark replied. "Because I'm not leaving our people trapped on that planet for 1 more day than necessary." The Retribution and its escort ships pushed through space at impossible speeds. In the engine rooms, human engineers worked around the clock to keep the quantum drives stable. They were pushing technology to its limits, but no one complained. They all knew what was at stake. On Earth, Admiral Sullivan was coordinating with the planet's defenses. If the creatures somehow made it to human space, Earth would be ready. The orbital defense platforms were armed with weapons that could crack a moon in half. The ground-based missile systems could reach targets anywhere in the solar system. "Do you think the fleet will be enough?" Jake asked. Admiral Sullivan looked at the tactical displays showing Earth's defenses. "Jake, most of the galaxy thinks we're harmless. They see us as a young species that's barely learned to leave its own planet. They have no idea that we've been preparing for war since the day we first looked at the stars." "Preparing for war with who?" Jake asked. "With anyone who threatens humanity," the Admiral replied. "The Council believes in peace through diplomacy. We believe in peace through superior firepower. We're about to find out which philosophy works better." As the fleet raced toward the outer rim, Captain Clark gathered his senior officers for a final briefing. The holographic display showed the Kepler system, with red markers indicating where the creatures had been detected. "Gentlemen, we're going into a situation we've never faced before," Clark said. "These creatures are unlike anything we've encountered. They're fast, they're tough, and they're intelligent. But they made one mistake." "What's that, sir?" Colonel Foster asked. Clark's smile was cold. "They threatened humans. And humans don't run from a fight. We end it." Captain Ben Clark stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, staring at the horror before him. The Kepler system looked like a graveyard. 3 planets that had once been green and alive were now gray and dead. Strange crystal structures covered their surfaces like a disease. "My God," whispered Dr. Amy Chun. "What did those things do?" "They consumed everything," Clark replied. "Every plant, every animal, every person. Look at the orbital scans." The display showed the planets in detail. Where cities had once stood, there were now only the gray structures. They pulsed with a sickly light, like they were alive. "Captain," said Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez from the communications station, "I'm picking up the signal from Commander Hayes. It's coming from underground on Kepler 442b. "Put it through," Clark ordered. The bridge filled with static. Then Hayes' voice came through. She sounded tired and scared. "This is Hayes. We're still alive, but barely. We're in some kind of bunker about 2 miles underground. The creatures can't get to us down here, but our food and water are running out. Hayes, this is Captain Clark of the UES Retribution. We're here to get you out." There was a long pause. Then Hayes spoke again, and Clark could hear the relief in her voice. "Thank God. Captain, these creatures are not natural. They're some kind of ancient weapon system. They consume everything they touch and use it to make more of themselves. And they're smart. They learn from everything they fight. How many survivors?" Clark asked. 12 of us. 8 aliens from different species, 2 humans, and 2 others who were injured. Captain, you need to be careful. These things destroyed an entire Galactic Council battle group that tried to stop them." Clark looked at Colonel Sam Foster, who was standing beside him. "Colonel, prepare your Marines." "We're going in." "Yes, sir," Foster replied. "My men are ready." The Retribution moved closer to Kepler 442b. As they approached, Clark could see the creatures on the surface. They were everywhere, crawling over the gray structures like insects. Some were as small as cars, others as big as buildings. "They're moving," observed Dr. Chun. "Look at the formations. They're organized, like an army." Clark nodded. "They know we're here. They're preparing for us." The ship's tactical officer, Lieutenant Jack Miller, spoke up. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy. Signatures from the surface. Whatever those structures are, they're powered by something we don't understand. Then we don't give them time to use it," Clark said. "Launch the strike teams. I want those survivors out of there before the creatures can react." The Retribution's hangar bay opened, and 6 small ships shot out. They were marine assault craft, designed for fast insertion into hostile territory. Each carried a squad of Marines in powered armor. Sergeant Tony Rodriguez led the first team. The sergeant was not related to the communications officer, but he shared the same courage. His Marines were the best Earth had to offer, trained in combat that most aliens couldn't even imagine. "Remember," Rodriguez told his squad as they approached, "the planet's surface, these things are tough, but they're not invincible. Stick together, Watcher 6, and get our people out." The assault craft hit the atmosphere at high speed. The creatures on the surface immediately began moving toward their landing zone. Rodriguez could see them through his ship's windows. Dark shapes that moved like liquid metal. "Landing in 30 seconds, the pilot called out. "Heavy resistance expected." The craft touched down in a cloud of dust and smoke. The Marines poured out, their weapons ready. The powered armor made them look like metal giants, and their guns fired energy bolts that could cut through steel. The first creature to reach them was the size of a truck. It had dozens of legs and a mouth full of spinning teeth. Sergeant Rodriguez aimed his rifle and fired. The energy bolt hit the creature in the center, and it exploded in a shower of sparks. "They bleed electricity," Rodriguez reported over the radio. "But they die just like everything else." The Marines fought their way across the surface toward the underground bunker. The creatures kept coming, wave after wave of them. But the Marines had trained for this. They moved like a machine, covering each other and destroying everything in their path. "This is insane," said Private Lee, one of the younger Marines. "How many of these things are there?" "Doesn't matter," Rodriguez replied, shooting another creature. "We've got a job to do." They reached the bunker entrance after 20 minutes of fighting. The heavy metal door was sealed shut, but the Marines had equipment for that. They placed explosive charges around the door and took cover. The explosion echoed across the dead landscape. When the smoke cleared, the door was gone. Rodriguez led his team down into the darkness. The bunker was a maze of tunnels and rooms. The Marines moved carefully, their lights cutting through the shadows. They could hear voices ahead, human voices mixed with alien sounds. "This way," Rodriguez said, following his scanner. "The life signs are coming from the main chamber." They found the survivors in a large room filled with ancient machinery. Commander Hayes looked up as the Marines entered. Her face was dirty and tired, but her eyes were bright with hope. "You made it," she said. "I wasn't sure anyone would come." "We're Americans," Rodriguez replied. "We don't leave people behind." The survivors were in bad shape. The aliens looked strange to Rodriguez. He had never seen most of their species before, but they were clearly intelligent beings, and they were scared. "We need to move fast," Hayes said. "The creatures are learning how to break through the bunker's defenses. They'll be down here soon." As if her words had summoned them, a sound echoed through the tunnels. It was the sound of metal tearing, and it was getting closer. "There. Coming," said Dr. Kell, the four-armed alien scientist. "They found a way in." Rodriguez spoke into his radio. "This is Rodriguez. We have the survivors, but we're trapped. The creatures are in the bunker." Captain Clark's voice came back immediately. "Hold your position, Sergeant. We're sending backup." The Marines formed a defensive line at the entrance to the chamber. They could hear the creatures moving through the tunnels, their claws scraping against the metal walls. The first creature appeared in the doorway. It was different from the ones on the surface, smaller but faster. It moved like a snake made, of metal and flesh. Rodriguez fired, but the creature dodged. It was learning from the battles on the surface. It knew how the Marines fought. "They're adapting," Hayes warned. "Every time we fight them, they get smarter." More creatures poured into the chamber. The Marines fell back, protecting the survivors. Their weapons fired constantly, lighting up the darkness with energy bolts. "We can't hold them much longer," Rodriguez shouted over the noise of battle. Then a new sound filled the chamber. It was the sound of explosions coming from the tunnels behind the creatures. The backup had arrived. Colonel Foster and his men fought their way through the tunnels like a hurricane. They used heavier weapons than the first team, guns that could destroy a tank with one shot. The creatures didn't stand a chance. "This is Foster," the colonel's voice came over the radio. "We're clearing the tunnels. Get the survivors ready to move." The rescue took another hour. The Marines had to fight their way back to the surface, carrying the wounded and protecting the survivors. The creatures attacked constantly, but the humans were ready for them. When they finally reached the assault craft, Rodriguez looked back at the bunker. The creatures were already moving in, consuming everything they found. "They're like locusts," he said to Hayes. "They eat everything and move on." "That's exactly what they are," Hayes replied. "And if we don't stop them, they'll consume the entire galaxy." The assault craft lifted off, carrying the survivors to safety. But as they rose into the sky, Rodriguez could see the creatures spreading across the surface. They were building new structures, growing stronger. On the Retribution, Captain Clark watched the rescue with grim satisfaction. They had saved the survivors, but the real fight was just beginning. "How many more of these things are there?" he asked Dr. Chun. "According to the data we recovered," she replied, "there are dormant sites all across the galaxy. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands," Clark nodded. "Then we'd better get to work. Because if these things wake up, it's going to be a war like nothing the galaxy has ever seen." He looked at the display showing the Kepler system. 3 dead worlds, consumed by ancient nightmares. And somewhere out there, more of these creatures were waiting to be awakened. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "We need to warn the fleet, and we need to prepare for the fight of our lives." Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the war room, deep beneath Earth's surface. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing star maps, fleet positions, and threat assessments. The rescued survivors from Kepler 442b sat around a large table, their faces pale with exhaustion. "Tell me everything," Sullivan said to Commander Lisa Hayes. "Every detail about these creatures." Hayes took a deep breath. "They're not just animals, Admiral. They're a weapon system, ancient but incredibly advanced. They consume all organic matter and technology, then use it to build more of themselves. Dr. Amy Chun added information from her scans. We've identified at least 47 dormant sites across the galaxy. Each one contains enough of these creatures to consume entire star systems. Ambassador Veltar, a tall alien with gray skin, spoke up. The Galactic Council appreciates Earth's rescue operation, but we must handle this crisis through proper diplomatic channels. Admiral Sullivan turned to look at the ambassador. Diplomatic channels? Ambassador, these things ate 3 planets. What exactly do you plan to negotiate with them? Violence only leads to more violence, the ambassador replied. The Council has protocols for dealing with unknown threats. We will send science teams to study these creatures and find a peaceful solution. While they consume more worlds, Sullivan said. Her voice was cold. How many people are you willing to sacrifice for your peaceful solution? Captain Ben Clark, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Admiral, we've analyzed the data from the Kepler system. These creatures are spreading faster than we initially thought. They're not just on the original 3 planets anymore. Sullivan looked at the star map. Red dots marked the locations where the creatures had been detected. There were more than before. They're moving to other systems, she said. How long before they reach inhabited worlds? At their current rate of expansion, maybe 6 months. Dr. Chun replied. But that's assuming they don't find a way to travel faster. Ambassador Veltar stood up. The Council will not authorize military action. We forbid Earth from deploying weapons of mass destruction. Sullivan smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Ambassador, with respect, the Council doesn't have the authority to forbid anything. Earth is a sovereign world. You are members of the Galactic Council, the ambassador protested. You must follow our laws. We're members when it's convenient, Sullivan replied. But when our people are threatened, we make our own rules. She activated the holographic display. It showed Earth's true military strength. The ambassador's eyes widened as he saw the fleet sizes, the weapon specifications, the orbital defense platforms. This is impossible, he whispered. Your species is barely capable of interstellar travel. How do you have such advanced technology? We've been busy, Sullivan said. While your people were building gardens and writing poetry, we were preparing for war, because we knew that someday peace wouldn't be enough. Colonel Sam Foster entered the room. Admiral, the fleet is ready. We can have 60 ships in space within 12 hours. 60 ships? Ambassador Veltar gasped. The Council's entire fleet is only 30 vessels. The Council's fleet is designed for exploration and diplomacy, Sullivan replied. Our fleet is designed to kill things that threaten humanity. She turned to address the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we're implementing the Deathworld Doctrine. Earth will take full military action to eliminate the Devourer threat. Commander Hayes looked confused. The Deathworld Doctrine? It's a military strategy we developed, Sullivan explained, based on the principle that sometimes the only way to protect innocent life is through overwhelming violence. We're going to hunt down every one of these creatures and destroy them. But the Council's orders, Ambassador Veltar began. The Council can file a complaint, Sullivan interrupted, after we save the galaxy. Over the next few days, Earth's true strength was revealed. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and behind planets emerged from concealment. The fleet that assembled near Earth was massive, bristling with weapons that most aliens had never imagined. Captain Clark stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the other ships take their positions. The heavy cruiser Vengeance was to his left, its hull covered in missile tubes. The destroyer Fury was to his right, its energy cannons gleaming in the starlight. It's beautiful, said Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez. Like a steel symphony. It's terrifying, added Dr. Chun. I'm human, and even I'm scared of what we're capable of. Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. We are about to engage in the most important battle in human history. These creatures threaten not just us, but every living thing in the galaxy. The fleet began to move, splitting into smaller groups. Each group had a target, a different star system where the creatures had been detected. The Council species developed their technology for peace, Sullivan continued. They built ships to explore, to trade, to make friends. We built our ships to hunt and kill our enemies. Today, we find out which philosophy was right. Captain Clark's group was assigned to the Vega system, where the creatures had been detected 3 days ago. As they approached, they could see the familiar signs: dead planets, gray structures, and the dark shapes of the creatures themselves. Same as Kepler, Clark observed. They consume everything organic and use it to build more of themselves. Sir, sighed Lieutenant Miller, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the surface, much stronger than what we saw at Kepler. They're learning, Dr. John said. Each time they consume a new world, they get more advanced. Clark nodded. And we don't give them time to learn more. All ships, prepare for orbital bombardment. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that turned night into day. Energy beams that could melt mountains struck the creature-infested planets. Kinetic projectiles moving at near light speed shattered the gray structures. Target the energy sources, Clark ordered. Don't let them power up their defenses. The bombardment continued for hours. The creatures tried to fight back, launching their own attacks into space. But their weapons were designed for consuming organic matter, not fighting warships. They're adapting, reported Dr. Chun. Look at the sensor readings. They're trying to modify their attacks to be more effective against our shields. Too late, Clark replied. Fire the quantum torpedoes. The torpedoes were Earth's newest weapon. They disrupted matter at the atomic level, turning anything they touched into energy. When they hit the creature-infested planet, entire continents simply disappeared. My God, whispered Lieutenant Rodriguez. We just destroyed a planet. We destroyed a threat, Clark corrected. Those things would have used that planet to spread to 10 more worlds. Similar battles were taking place across the galaxy. Human fleets struck at creature sites with devastating efficiency. They used weapons that most aliens considered too dangerous to build: antimatter bombs, planet cracker missiles, and energy weapons that could ignite a star. The creatures fought back, but they were facing something they had never encountered before. Every other species in the galaxy had tried to fight them with restraint, trying to minimize collateral damage. Humans had no such restrictions. This is Captain Williams of the UES destroyer, came a report from another battle group. We've eliminated the creature site in the Centauri system. The entire system is now clear. Good work, Admiral Sullivan replied from Earth. Move to your next target. The campaign continued for weeks. Human fleets hunted down creature sites across the galaxy, destroying them with ruthless efficiency. The creatures tried to adapt, but humans adapted faster. They're starting to avoid us, reported Captain Clark after his 10th successful mission. They're learning to fear human ships. Good, Sullivan replied. Fear is a weapon too, but not. Everyone was happy with Earth's methods. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Many species were horrified by the level of destruction humans were capable of. They're barbarians, said one council member. They destroy entire star systems without hesitation. They're effective, replied another. The creature threat is being eliminated. Ambassador Veltar stood before the council. The humans have revealed their true nature. They are not explorers or diplomats. They are predators. Apex predators. From a death world. And that's exactly what we need right now, said a voice from the back. It was Captain Hayes, who had recovered from her ordeal. These creatures can't be reasoned with. They can't be negotiated with. They can only be killed. And humans are very good at killing. The debate continued, but the results spoke for themselves. The creature threat was being eliminated, one star system at a time. The galaxy was being saved by the species that most aliens had dismissed as primitive. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Clark looked at the tactical display. More than half the creature sites had been destroyed. The remaining ones were trying to hide, but human sensors were too advanced. What happens after this is over? Asked Dr. Chun. When the galaxy knows what we're really capable of. Clark was quiet for a moment. Then they'll know that Earth isn't just another member of the Council. We're the galaxy's protectors. Whether they like it or not. And if they don't like it? Dr. Chun asked. Then they'll have to deal with it, Clark replied. Because the alternative is extinction. And humans don't allow extinction on our watch. The fleet moved on to the next target. Behind them, another star. The final battle took place in the Andromeda sector, where the largest collection of Devourer sites had been discovered. Captain Ben Clark stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, looking at a tactical display that showed the enemy positions. 12 planets infected with the creatures, all connected by some kind of energy network. This is their main hub, reported Dr. Amy Chun. All the other sites we destroyed were connected to this place. If we can take this out, we might stop the entire network. Easier said than done, observed Colonel Sam Foster. Look at those energy readings. They've had time to build defenses. The creatures had learned from their defeats. The planets in this system were covered with massive structures, that pulsed with power. Energy barriers surrounded each world, and space was filled with the largest creatures anyone had ever seen. They're the size of battleships, whispered Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez. How do we fight something that big? The same way we fight everything. Else, Clark replied, we hit them harder than they can hit us. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice came over the communication system from Earth. All ships, this is your final mission. Everything we've worked for comes down to this battle. Show them what humans are made of. The combined human fleet was the largest military force ever assembled. Over 200 ships from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies, each one armed, with the most advanced weapons humanity could build. Admiral, came a transmission from Captain Lara Jones of the heavy cruiser Devastator. The Council fleet is approaching. Ambassador Veltar is demanding we wait for their arrival. Tell the ambassador he can watch, Sullivan replied. This is a human operation. The Galactic Council ships arrived just as the battle began. Their vessels looked small and fragile compared to the human warships. Ambassador Veltar's ship, the Peaceful Dawn, took position well behind the human lines. They're really going to do it, the ambassador said to his aide. They're going to attack that entire system. Should we try to stop them? The aide asked. Veltar shook his head. I don't think we could stop them if we tried. Look at those ships. They're not exploring vessels. They're weapons of war. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams that could cut through planetary cores struck the creature defenses. Missile salvos numbering in the thousands filled space with explosions. The quantum torpedoes turned entire moons into clouds of energy. The creatures fought back with their own weapons. Beams of dark energy lanced out from the infected planets, striking human ships and trying to consume their hulls. Several smaller vessels were damaged, but the human fleet kept firing. They're adapting again, reported Dr. Chun. The creatures are modifying their attacks in real time. So are we, Clark replied. Switch to rotating frequencies. Don't give them time to adjust. The human ships began using different weapons in sequence. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, antimatter bombs, and exotic weapons that bent space itself. The creatures couldn't adapt fast enough, but the real breakthrough came when Colonel Foster led a desperate assault on the central planet. His Marines used a new type of powered armor that could survive in the creature-infested environment. "This is Foster," his voice crackled over the radio. "We're on the surface. These things are everywhere, but we're pushing through." The Marines fought their way across a landscape that looked like something from a nightmare. The ground was covered with the gray structures, and creatures attacked from every direction. But the humans had trained for this kind of fighting. "There," Foster pointed to a massive structure in the distance. "That's got to be their command center. All the energy readings are coming from there." The Marines battled their way to the structure, using explosives and energy weapons to clear a path. When they reached the building, they found something unexpected. A chamber filled with the same technology they had seen in the original dig site. "It's a control room," Foster reported. "The whole network is being run from here. Can you shut it down?" Clark asked from orbit. "Maybe," Foster replied. "But we'd have to overload the entire system. The explosion would take out everything in this sector." There was a moment of silence. Then Admiral Sullivan's voice came through. "Do it, Colonel. End this." Foster and his Marines placed their most powerful explosives around the control chamber. As they worked, the creatures attacked with increasing desperation. They seemed to understand that their entire network was about to be destroyed. "Charges set," Foster reported. "We've got about 5 minutes to get clear." But as the Marines tried to retreat, they found their path blocked by the largest creature anyone had ever seen. It was the size of a building, with hundreds of arms and a mouth that could swallow a tank. "We're trapped," Foster said. "The thing is too big. We can't get past it." From orbit, Captain Clark watched the situation develop. His Marines were about to die, and there was nothing he could do to help them. Then Lieutenant Rodriguez spoke up. "Sir, what if we don't try to get past it? What if we go through it?" Clark looked at him. "Explain." "The Retribution has enough firepower to punch a hole through that creature. If we fire everything at once, we might be able to create an opening. That would require a precision strike from orbit," Clark said. "One mistake and we kill our own people." "Then we don't make a mistake," Rodriguez replied. Clark nodded. "All ships, concentrate fire on my target. Precision strikes only. Our people are down there." The human fleet fired as one. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles struck the massive creature with surgical precision. The thing roared and thrashed, but it couldn't survive the concentrated firepower of an entire fleet. "Go, go, go," Foster shouted to his Marines. They ran through the opening, carrying their wounded and racing against time. They reached their extraction point just as the explosives went off. The explosion was visible from space, a column of light that reached up from the planet's surface. The energy waves spread across the system, destroying every creature structure it touched. "The network is down," reported Dr. Chun. "All energy readings are dropping to 0. Across the galaxy, the remaining Devourer sites went silent. Without the central command system, the creatures couldn't coordinate their attacks. They became isolated groups that could be easily hunted down and destroyed. "It's over," Admiral Sullivan announced to the fleet. "The threat has been eliminated." The human ships began the long journey home. As they traveled, reports came in from across the galaxy. The creatures were dying off, their network broken. Worlds that had been consumed were slowly beginning to recover. But the real changes were just beginning. The Galactic Council had seen what humans were capable when they went to war. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had just saved the galaxy. Ambassador Veltar requested a meeting with Admiral Sullivan. They met on the neutral station at Alpha Centauri, with representatives from dozens of alien species watching. "Admiral," the ambassador began, "the Council owes you a debt we can never repay. You saved us all." "We did what needed to be done," Sullivan replied. "What any species should do when faced with extinction." "But your methods," Veltar continued. "The level of destruction you're capable of. It changes everything." Sullivan nodded. "Yes, it does. The galaxy now knows that Earth isn't just another member world. We're the ones you call when diplomacy fails. And if we don't want your protection?" asked another alien representative. Sullivan's smile was cold. "Then you're free to handle the next crisis yourselves. But when something threatens innocent life, we'll be there, whether you invite us or not." The meeting continued for hours, but the outcome was clear. Earth had become the galaxy's unofficial military power. The other species would handle exploration, trade, and diplomacy. Humans would handle the things that wanted to kill everyone. Captain Clark returned to Earth a hero. He stood before a crowd of millions, people from Earth and dozens of other worlds. They all wanted to see the man who had led the final battle against the Devourers. "People ask me if I'm proud of what we did," Clark said to the crowd. "They ask if I'm proud that humans are the best killers in the galaxy." He paused, looking out at the faces watching him. "I'm not proud that we're good at war," he continued. "I'm proud that we're good at protecting people who can't protect themselves. The galaxy is full of species that chose peace over strength. That's a beautiful thing. But sometimes, evil things threaten that peace. And when they do, they have to deal with us." The crowd cheered. In the audience, Commander Lisa Hayes watched with mixed emotions. She had started this whole crisis by activating the ancient technology. Now she was watching humanity become something new. What happens now? She asked Dr. Chun, who was standing beside her. "Now we go back to being human," Chun replied. "But the galaxy will never see us the same way again. Is that good or bad?" Chun thought for a moment. "It's necessary. Someone has to be the guardians. Someone has to be willing to fight the things that can't be reasoned with. And that someone is us." "That someone is us," Chun agreed out above them. Earth's defense fleet maintained its patrol routes. The ships were still armed with weapons that could crack planets. The soldiers were still Trasystem was.